Hello, everyone, and welcome to School of Speech, the podcast designed for all of us school-based SLPs, presented by Speech Therapy PD. I am your host, Carolyn Dolby, and I am so delighted for all of us today because it is going to be fantastic. Just so you know, each episode we really design, we want it to be a chance to connect you guys to recharge and be able to explore practical strategies, fresh perspectives, and a little inspiration that really brings us back to what we do and what we do for our students and the teams that we serve. Together, we will dive into the heart of what we do, which is supporting communication, fostering confidence, and really celebrating the impact that we make every single day. So, whether you are tuning in from your car, from your classroom, or cozied up at home in your soft clothes, this is your space to learn, laugh, and lead, really with purpose. Today, we are exploring universal design for learning for the school-based SLP, empowering students and supporting teachers. And it's really extra special because we have a whole team of amazing guests today. We have Vicki Haddix. Vicki is a clinical associate professor at the university level, at the University of Memphis. Sorry, I'm getting all reclamped because I'm so super excited. So she's a professor at the University of Memphis. She teaches graduate level AAC courses and supervises students in the university clinic. And her current research involves, you guessed it, UDL. I found her. She wrote in the ASA Leader all about UDL. I read it. I loved it. I'm going to, in a minute, put her article link in the chat for y'all so you guys can go and read it because she's amazing. Not only do we have Vicki, we also have Emma Ellen. She's an SLP, and she has worked with children ages 3 to 21 in both the school and in private practice, and currently is a school-based SLP with a focus in preschool, so early childhood. And then we have Allison as well, Allison Herrera. Allie is an SLP working in the public schools, serving elementary age students with speech and language impairments. I am so thrilled to have this panel of dynamic clinicians here today for really an upbeat conversation on empowering our students, supporting our teachers, and really making therapy more engaging for everyone. So, as we just settle in for another amazing episode, don't forget each episode is 0.1 assessing you through Speech Therapy PD. Just a little bit more housekeeping. Financial disclosures. Actually, Vicki, Emma, and Ellie have no financials to disclose. For me, I am a salaried employee of Portland Public Schools. I am a co-founder of A Place to Start Therapy, and I receive compensation from Speech Therapy for hosting School of Speech, which I can't believe I get to do. All right, enough about me. Let's really get into the good stuff. Look at everyone jumping in. Oh, we have so many people from all over the place. Thank you so much for listening today. You will not be sorry. So you're welcome. I was just kidding. All right, let's get in because I really want you guys to have as much time and information. I want to welcome Vicki. Hi, Vicki.
Hello, everybody.
Thanks for being here. Hello, Emma. And hi, Allie. All right. I think what I always like is to know everyone's journey. And so if we could just kick it off with, what's your journey that drew you to universal design for learning? Like, how did we all find ourselves here? Lead us off. Whoever wants to go first, jump in.
Okay, so I feel like this is my thing.
I think so. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, Vicki, start us off.
so I first thought I was working in Boston Public Schools in Massachusetts, and the organization that created UDL is located just north of Boston. And they did some professional development for us in the schools. And I was trying to figure out what it was when I was writing that article for ASHA, and my best guess was 2008. Those of you who've been in the field for a while, you know how years can kind of get messy. But I think it was somewhere around 2008. And I wasn't actually all that thrilled with it at first. I just wasn't sure that it really applied to me as an SLP. But as I learned more about it and got more into it, I realized that it actually had a lot to do with me as an SLP. And as a university professor, I use it a lot. So I've gotten much more into UDL. So
Thanks, Vicki. Yeah, well, I kind of feel like I came to it on accident a little bit. I feel like when you get out of grad school and you start, whether you're in the schools or any type of setting, there's all of a sudden you're supposed to be practically applying all of this knowledge that you learned. And while we have a lot of good practical experience, it's just not the same as the real deal. And then it's only you. And I feel like I had heard about UDL, I'd heard the term, I've kind of heard some of the vocabulary surrounding it. But then when I started looking into it more, then I actually also read Vicky's article. It kind of opened the door to looking more into it myself. And I actually think that UDL just kind of gives some real language and concrete terminology to the things that I think SLPs in schools, especially, are already doing or trying to apply. It just kind of gives you a more concrete, okay, yes, this is what I'm doing. I'm on the right track type of thing. And that's kind of what got me into using it more in my practice. All right. Your origin story, Allie.
Yeah. So very similar to Emma. Emma and I are both previous students of Vicki. And when I saw Vicki's article in the ASHA Leader, I thought it was really interesting. And I had this sort of the same reaction as I read it. I'm like, hey, we're kind of already doing universal design for learning in our practice. And so I think I may have even said that to her in my email, just saying, hey, Vicki, that's a cool article. That's really interesting that we're kind of already halfway doing universal design for learning just as being a speech pathologist in the schools. So yeah, that's similar journey there.
I love it. I love little happy little accidents, that all brought us here, and I love it. I think maybe Vicky is our leader. I'm gonna jump to you next about because I think some of us this is a new concept, universal design for learning. Can okay, can you just listen? Basically, could you just speak to me and tell me what is it? Like design it for me. And I read it in your article and it was amazing, but I think the listeners out there too, it might be some new knowledge.
So universal design for learning came out of a universal design ideas in general, but mostly in architecture. So the analogy that we hear a lot about is those curb cuts. So in the sidewalk where you have the little like things that go down into the level of the road, it's kind of a slant. Those didn't pop up until the 1970s because somebody who used a wheelchair was like, hey, it's difficult to get around the city with my wheelchair doesn't go up steps like that. So we started doing curb cuts, and as we started doing them, we realized that they're really helpful for people who are pushing baby carriages or who might be on a skateboard or riding bikes, or just generally having one of those wheeled carts that they like to carry their groceries in. That these curb cuts were really handy for everybody. People who don't like to have some balance issues going up and down stairs, like they're really helpful. So that is the idea of universal design. That something might be specifically for someone who really needs it, but lots of people can find it really handy. So that idea is applied to learning through the idea of of universal design for learning. So we have three distinct pillars of UDL is usually what they're referred to as. So we have engagement is the one that I like to talk about first, because if your learner is not interested in what you're trying to teach them, it doesn't go like the rest of it doesn't matter so much. So finding something that attracts, that sparks an interest, that makes a connection, that's the why of learning. So, and I think Emma and Allison will probably talk more about this going forward. But thinking about why are we working on these goals? What does this give me? Nobody really likes to. I think I said in the article, nobody really likes to work really hard at something that doesn't matter. Let's make it clear about why this matters. It's a simple thing, but it makes a huge difference to a lot of people. And being able to embed some choice into learning. It's little things from where are you going to sit? Do you want to sit on this, some of us are lucky enough to have like the bouncy ball things as a seating option. Or even just, do you want to sit in this chair or this chair? Do you want to like face the window or away from the window? Like those kinds of choices make a big difference. So engagement, first principle. Second one is about representation. So thinking about how we are presenting information to students. Are we doing everything auditory wise, or do we have some visuals? That's the thing that I think about a lot, is when I'm giving directions that people don't seem to be following. How did I give those directions? Can I give them in another way? Multiple means of representation can be very important. And then the last one is about action and expression. So thinking about how they're going to demonstrate their knowledge. And this is the one I think that you have to think pretty carefully about, because if their goal is something specific, then you need to work on something specific. But if the goal is, I just need you to prove that you read this, do they have to do that by writing a paragraph? Could they draw a picture about what happened in that chapter? Could they talk to you about it? Could they come up with an infographic, an outline? There doesn't always have to be a paragraph that they write. So action and expression is really thinking about how can we get creative while still meeting our goals.
I went ahead and just like captured that. I'm going to put that. Oh, wait, did I do it? Let me get it in. I'm going to put that. There it is. Just for those that are listening, I went ahead and captured the 3 pillars, which were engagement, the why of learning, representation, the what of learning, and then action and expression, the how of learning. I love that. That really like brings it all together. Thank you. Definitely for giving us like common kind of common foundation of language, so we know that where we're going with that. I love it. Okay. Well, now that we have the 3 pillars of universal design for learning, that's all fine and good. But like, tell us why it's we need buy-in. That's what I'm trying to say. SLPs, you know what? We got so much going on. We want some buy-in. We want to know how it is valuable specifically for school-based SLPs. Who wants to go for that? I'm open.
I'll go for it. I think that it's really valuable for us in the school setting, especially because so often we have large caseloads. We all know maybe you're going between different sites, things like that. It's really easy to try to get yourself on a system. You know, I've got this activity and I can apply it to this group, this group, this group, and I take my data this way and I'm going to do it exactly this way so that I can be efficient. And I think that's great. And I feel like a lot of SLPs, our personalities often geared towards that. We want to be organized, and that can sometimes, I feel like, lead to rigidity. And I feel like being a school-based SLP is all about flexibility, and then even more importantly, being individualized and thinking about the individuality of each of our kids. And so it's like, wouldn't it be great if we could just do the same thing across the board? Not really, because you wouldn't be getting the results that we want to see. You wouldn't be able to get the data that you want to get. You wouldn't be able to see the growth that you want to get. I think using the UDL principles gives you the flexibility and the individualized kind of care that we want in the schools, especially.
Okay, so we as speech pathologists, we are providing specialized specialized. Oh my gosh, my mind is so blank. Designed as
Right. We're giving specially designed
instruction.
Yeah, we want them to be able to access the curriculum. That means different things for different kids access. So yes, that's where you can use your UDL strategies.
Okay, all right. Because we want I guess when we're thinking about, okay, so our kids have individually designed instruction, but we really can't. We need it to be individualized, and we don't want to do the same thing for everybody, right? But then how do we how do we check to see if our sessions kind of align with UDL? Did I jump did I jump fast?
No, that's okay. I got it. I think that's something, like I said, that I think a lot of us are already really trying to incorporate, and we're not reinventing the wheel with doing this. Like I said, I feel like it's just using a different lens from the outset. And I think one of the important things about it is making it part of your overall practice and not just trying to plug it in where you have time. Although sometimes it comes down to that, and that's understandable.
Yeah, I guess I should have asked, like, how should we design?
Right.
And that I think I jumped. Yeah. So I was like, we want to incorporate it. So we want to align to it. But I guess I need to back up. What would it look like if I'm trying, because we do design our sessions. So if we are designing our sessions, if we're going to look through the UDL lens, how do we do that?
Well, I think one of the things that is important for UDL is that reflection piece, that self-reflection for the students. And I think that's something that can happen within an individual session and all across their school year. You may start out the year with, usually my first sessions are about what are our goals. And for some younger ones, they might not know that, hey, I'm using multiple phonological processes that are making me unintelligible. But they do know, hey, I'm having a hard time talking with my friends. So if we're talking about, hey, I'm going to work on my sounds. Why? So that I can talk to my friends. Like, that type of thing puts that why that I think that Vicki was talking about into terms that is, like you said, buy-in, terms that student cares about, basically. And I think for older kids, kind of, they can dig a little bit deeper into that. Why do I need to work on this skill? I need to work on it because next year I'm going to need to do this skill. And when I, graduate, I'm going to need to be able to do this for the job that I want. I want to do one specific cool thing. I got to be able to do this to get there. I think them having that student voice is huge. And I think when they're reflecting on what they want to work on, they can also reflect on what they're awesome at. And that can kind of give you a little, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a little bit of headway into what they think about themselves. If they think I'm awesome at this, I'd be like, ooh, okay, I'm going to try to use that. I'm going to use that for how they're going to respond to me, or what type of activities we're going to do, or whatever it is. So I think that would be the place I would start, would be reflection.
I love that, because the first pillar being engagement, right? And we want the students to be engaged, because I have worked on all elementary, middle, and high, but I remember I do love the littles. And sometimes if someone asks, what do you do in speech? Oh, we play games.
Right.
And then that just builds issue with, if teachers think you're just playing games, or family, we're doing so much more. The game might be the representation, but having that engagement. And when I loved when you said giving the student the voice, we need buy-in of why they are being pulled out from their peers, pulled out of instruction, whether general or focused classrooms or what have you, and understanding, because Vicki, at the very top of you were discussing, why do we want to do something really hard if we don't, I can't remember how you said it, but if it doesn't really mean anything, right?
I don't want to work really hard at something that seems pointless.
That's it, right? No one wants to, right? Yeah. And so giving them the point, and also having client voice as part of evidence-based practice as well, is knowing what students or, our clients or students' preferences are. So, so thinking, designing our therapy sessions first with making sure we get our engagement. I love that.
To add, can I pop in?
Oh, jump in, Allie. Yes.
I think kind of tying it back, I like what Vicki said about sort of the origin of UDL being when we look at the way we design sidewalks. I think that's so interesting because when we think about grade level curriculum, I'm sure we can all say that if we've ever looked at one of our students' textbooks, sometimes I'm almost shocked by what they're expected to be able to do. I mean, they're expected to perform on grade level, and the curriculum is assuming that these children have average comprehension skills, average expression skills, but we know that that's not the case for our students. And then even if we looked at other children in the class, like English language learners, even though they're not necessarily on our caseload, that's still a complex language need within a classroom. So universal design for learning is sort of like the I don't remember the term you used, Vicki, but the graded sidewalk. Yeah, the curb cut to support everybody, you know, regardless of their needs.
I'm jumping in now because what you just made me think about was like we as SLPs do amazing work with our students. And I think what we're saying, all students would benefit from, strategies that we're using in speech. Now, please don't get this wrong, that I'm not saying we are not here saying that everybody needs speech. No, but we're saying that using this concept in teachers using this concept along with, because speech and us using this, it just makes sense. We're pretty much already doing this with our students because we have to differentiate within our group settings as school-based clinicians. We don't have the luxury of just having one client, 8 clients a day or 7 clients a day and just one at a time. We've got a group full of busy students, all with all different needs.
So yeah, and sorry. Yeah, I was just thinking about that too. The group nature of most of our sessions in a school-based setting kind of, like you said, already leads us to trying to use these principles because we want to be able to meet each student where they are, allow them to show what they know in the way that they're best able to show it. And I think sometimes we want to kind of do a session round robin style, go around, okay, you show me, you show me, you show me, and then the other ones are just sitting there waiting for their turn. And I think I was just thinking the other day of an example. I tried to use some of these principles. I had a student, we were all kind of working on being able to answer comprehension questions about a text. And, we were reading out loud, we were reading it together, we're doing all of that. Some of the other kids in the group were really enjoying being able to do like a kind of turn and talk, talk to each other, partner share. They could just have a little discussion and then wanted to share their answers with me like that. That was great. And then I had one student who that was just not working for. They were not participating at all, totally just not wanting to
having it.
Not having it. Not interested, and then kind of starting to totally disengage, act out a little bit. Maybe I'm, at the door doing something else. Maybe I'm trying to go figure out where Pop the Pig is or something in the room, something like that. It just wasn't working. And I really thought about this student through this UDL lens and thought about, okay, what are they good at? The student has some strengths in reading and writing. The student is not the most competent, but loves to be in charge, wants to be in control of the situation. And so I came up with the idea. I gave the student just their own individual whiteboard. And for the next few sessions, they were the judge. And they wrote their answer on the whiteboard and showed it to me first. That's when I took my data to see what they said. Then if it was correct, I go, okay, great, you can reveal it to the group. They'd reveal it, everything. If it wasn't correct, that student kind of got a little individualized private feedback where they weren't called out in front of everybody or something like that. Changed it and then still revealed it. So in a way, it was almost like a little bit of a spin on an errorless learning as well for them, because
I love everything you're saying.
They were showing off that they got it right every time to the group, and we were doing a little individual kind of thing. And I think then after that, they were the judge every time. They loved it. And all of a sudden we were engaged again.
it took nothing from you.
Right. It wasn't, I
mean-
had the whiteboard in my room. I didn't have to buy anything fancy.
Didn't take power from you. You were still, you know what I mean? It wasn't like they were taking over the set. No, but you gave them the power and you empowered them to show. I love, because you said that, get to know what they are good at. We should know that because, I always, kids and families, they know what they can't do. We do need to look at what they can do and incorporate that. Kids will always try better when they think they're, when they not think, they need to feel it. It needs to be authentic. Sorry about that little flip. Like, they will do better when they are feeling better and that they are getting that right. And you found a way that student wouldn't shut down because you were able to quickly give a strategy or shape whatever it was, give him some feedback, get him to where you need him to be.
And I think part of that was realizing, well, what am I really measuring here if they're not participating? First of all, I'm not really measuring anything if they're not answering. And then really what I'm asking them to do for that student was more of a social task. And I didn't need them to engage in a social task. That wasn't what we were working on. I needed them to work on their comprehension and be able to answer comprehension questions. So we took it back to focus on what I'm measuring, basically.
So basically a win-win.
A win-win.
The students who were into the social task got to do that because that's what engaged them.
Right.
But the ones that don't need that, you don't need to force them to engage in the social task when what you want is the comprehension questions.
Right, exactly.
So you're able to, find what is needed for each of the students. Well, okay, so we're talking, that was a good view of like what you could do in a small group setting. A great idea. I want to move, Allie, I'm going to shift to you if that's all right. Because I know that you do a lot of push-in with your kiddos. Do you want to take the reins on talking about applying UDL when collaborating with teachers, working in the classroom? You go, girl.
For sure. So I have like a specific example that I'll go through, but I had some other thoughts so my kind of focus for the presentation was about specifically within the classroom and doing push-in therapy. And I think there are some big benefits of universal design for learning within the classroom specifically. It can help reduce the stigma about accommodations. So you've got certain kids that get certain accommodations and other kids may think, well, why did they get to do that? Or why do they always leave for the tests? Or why do they, but if you implement, and this would be us or the teachers in collaboration with the teachers, if you implement universal design for learning, then kind of everybody gets the benefit of accommodations and it can reduce that stigma. Also, a huge benefit of pushing in, I think, to the classroom is that teachers get to see us use our skills in real time. And I think that is super helpful. And it's not always possible. I wouldn't even say I do push-in sessions every day, but I do like to do them. And I think it's really beneficial for building rapport with the teachers, because sometimes we're just that mystery person that comes and pulls kids, and then we're in the IEP meeting and they don't really get to see what we do. So I think even just being in the room and the teachers watching us work with the kids, that can give the teacher ideas. I've had teachers say, oh, that was so cool the way you did that. Or I've had them ask for copies of things that I had used with my kids. So I think a benefit of being in the classroom and trying to implement universal design for learning is just that the teachers get exposure to us. So I'll just
Because we all know we're amazing. We all know we are amazing, and then they should see it too.
But we have a lot of skills that teachers can benefit from, and we also benefit from being in the classroom too, because we get to see what are the demands on our children, and there are a lot of demands within the classroom. Grade level curriculum is hard. It's hard for our students, and I think it just kind of gives us like a a dose of reality, like what are we up against and what do our children really need to work on. It can give us context too for their goals.
I'm just going to double down on that, because why are we school-based SLPs? To remove the barriers and have access to the curriculum. And so it's important for us to know what the curriculum is.
Yeah.
And I
Win
again.
Yeah.
And I
you
do-
can.
For the win.
and I just want to insert one quick example.
Absolutely.
When I was working in Boston, I was working with a teacher who was used to teaching longer classes and had moved into a middle school that had shorter class periods than she was used to. So she was always rushing at the end. And my kid, who had some auditory processing issues, was never getting their homework in. And it wasn't until I actually got into the class and observed a little bit that I realized that she was rushing so much that she was saying the homework in like the last minute of class, right before the bell, like as they're trying to get all their stuff together. And he didn't even realize he had homework half the time. So he wasn't getting it done. And I was just like, and she's like, yeah, homework is really a problem. And I was like, so have you thought it's like you could write it on the board instead of just announcing it? You could just literally put it on the board in the same place every time. And then you could maybe say something about like, hey, don't forget homework. I wrote it there. But like, that's the sort of thing that she didn't realize that was a barrier. And it helped the kid who was on my caseload, but it also helped quite a few others. She's like, wow, homework has gone way up since I started doing that. Like, yes, that's this kind of idea is, it was crucial for my kid, but it absolutely benefited everybody in that room. And the teacher was less frustrated about homework not being turned in.
And of course, the researcher in me thinks, I wish we had data that would have shown how many children not on IEPs were now putting, getting the homework in. Yeah, that's what I'm already thinking. I love it. So yeah, yay for pushing, yay for getting in the classroom. Allie, we did have a question from Laura asking, when you are doing push-in, do you do what does it look like? Do you do a whole class lesson or?
Now, my experience, I have worked with middle school, but primarily it's been elementary. And sometimes it depends on my caseload. Sometimes if I have a lot of kids in one class, like last year for preschool, I think I had 7 kids with language therapy in one preschool class. So you can bet that about once a month I went in and I did a whole group. I taught the whole class, had a good relationship with the teacher. I said, hey, can I come in tomorrow at such and such time and do a whole group lesson? And of course, what did she say every time? Yes, please.
Yes, please come in.
And so sometimes I do a whole group lesson. I also do that with my students who are in the self-contained classroom a lot. Not for every session they have, but sometimes I will go in and teach the whole class. And then sometimes I will go in if I have maybe 2 or 3 kids in a class. Sometimes it's because of scheduling and it's the only time I can see them is when they're in class, but sometimes I'll go in regardless. And I'll just sit with them and we will work. Ideally, it's during a time when you can talk to them. If it's not, then, maybe work out the scheduling a little bit differently. But if it's sort of a flexible sort of time, I'll go into the classroom and work with them at their table. And if those students aren't sitting together, I'll just ask the teacher, hey, can so-and-so and so-and-so swap seats just for 30 minutes? So then I've got my kids at one table and we're just kind of all doing it together.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, keep going.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I did not mean to interrupt.
It's okay. Totally fine. So I had like a little example to go through.
Yeah.
So kind of my whole reason for being interested in this is that one time I was pushing into a first grade science class and I was helping a student, and one of the quiz questions or whatever assessment questions in the textbook, I just remember reading it and thinking, that is the most convoluted way to ask that question. And I just remember thinking, this is so difficult for not only any 6-year-old, but especially a 6-year-old with a disability, with a language impairment, with a developmental delay, or whatever the case is. This is so hard. So I actually went back to that same teacher and I said, can I borrow a science textbook? And I picked a lesson out of it, and I just sort of kind of went through the 3 pillars of UDL and sort of picked out some examples from it. And I'm not able to, like, I know the listeners won't be able to see it, but this particular lesson was about daylight changes and seasons. And so for multiple means of engagement, to get the kids engaged, we need a clear learner outcome, which our textbook has. It says, I can explain why days have different lengths during different seasons. Great, we've got a clear learner outcome. So we need to make sure that our kids know what it is, and we keep in mind what it is too. And then we need to discuss background knowledge with them. Make sure that they are going into the lesson with the information that they need. So automatically, I'm thinking, we're talking about seasons. Do my students know the 4 seasons of the year? And one thing I've learned working in public schools is that we just really cannot assume that our children have prior knowledge about topics that we may think are simple. So it's always beneficial to check, at least check for that background knowledge. And then one of the other things under multiple means of engagement is providing choices. So in the textbook, it says, act out something you like to do in your favorite season. So I'm checking my background knowledge. Do they know what the 4 seasons are? We got that. And then it says to act out something from your favorite season. Well, maybe we say, do you want to act it out, or do you want to draw a picture of something from your favorite season? So with all that, we've got the kids engaged and we've got them set up. So we've set the stage for learning. And then we get into the meat of the lesson, and we can provide multiple means of representation, or how we're presenting the material. So when I was looking through this textbook, there's so much going on the page, right? So I'm thinking maybe we could ask the teacher, hey, can we show a video about this as well? So that would be another way to present the material. We can pre-teach vocabulary when we get a chance to. So when I'm looking through the text, I see that the word seasons is a vocabulary word and it's highlighted. But when I'm scanning the text, I see other words that my students may be unfamiliar with. So like I see the word path and I see the word predict. Okay, these are other words that I might want to talk through and make sure that they understand. And then we can also provide visual references. So, and again, this is sort of if you have time, or if you had a computer with you, you could even pull it up on the screen to let students see, but you can create a visual for the 4 seasons so that they like have a reference to go back to. And then the next page in the textbook was like a quiz about the lesson. So this is where we can do multiple means of action and expression. So them to show what they've learned. And the quiz questions, one of them required the students to fill in a chart, and one of them required the students to write a sentence. And I'm looking at that and thinking, my first graders might not be able to do this. But you can analyze the questions and say, okay, what are the questions really asking? And go back to the learner outcome. The learner outcome was to explain how the length of days change in different seasons. So maybe you could have them just explain it to you orally. Maybe they don't need to fill out a chart. I can just picture it in my head. I have a particular group of students I'm picturing. I can see them just copying off that chart off somebody else's paper, or copying it off the board. Did they really learn that the days are longer in summer and shorter in winter, or did they just copy down from the chart, right? So we want to make sure that we know what we want them to know and that they're able to express it to us. So yeah, those are kind of just talking through the 3 pillars of just a practical way to implement universal design for learning within the classroom and within the grade level curriculum.
I love that, because I think we're really hitting home that it is the outcome that we want, not necessarily everybody drawing a chart. Not everyone can draw a chart. Not everyone, has the physical ability to do that. And then, I'm sorry, my silly brain, when you started going over like prior knowledge of things like seasons and path, I was thinking like we could talk about, multiple meaning. We're And this, what do I mean by seasoned? And I'm not talking about, some hot chili flakes on my pizza or, some pickle, but then talking, and talking about that and how funny and fun that would be. And then the same with path. I was thinking because then I was thinking curb cut out, the curb cuts, and that would be to a path, but also path means our way to get to something too. So anyway, that's how you were painting such a great word picture with explaining that, and how you can be opening up a lesson to all the students to get everybody engaged, where they're at. That's awesome. Thanks, Allie.
Oh, thank you.
I love it. I love it. I do love for everybody winning. Sorry, we have some questions. I'm falling down on my job. Jill, I'm so sorry. I see your question. She is all on board on wanting to do push-in, but hey, how to get teachers to buy in for push-in?
I guess that's my question.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I'm looking at you without you knowing I'm looking at you.
If anyone else likes to push in too, y'all can totally jump in. For me, I've been at my current school for a few years, so I do have like a good relationship with the teachers that I work with. I think let's realize too that if you offer to come in and say, "Hey, can I teach a lesson?" or "Hey, can I come in and help and I'll help all your students?" they're going to say yes. I mean, I just feel like they'd be totally down to have help or to have a 30-minute break for us to come in and teach something. So I've only had positive experiences with pushing into the classroom.
So you might need to front load it, first for that teacher by saying, "Hey, let me come in and just do the lesson. You take a break," but then realizing but then you bring them in because this isn't for them to just sit back and take a break, because you need paras all on board. We need teachers all on board. We need everybody in. But maybe the first time you come and you sweeten it, let me carry the whole load and let me show you how wonderful this is going to be. And you're going to thank me.
Yeah.
And then, Sam, thank you. Another question, which Allie could be directed to you, but also to the whole panel we have today. Do you have some suggestions for encouraging teachers to use UDL accommodations, especially teachers that are more resistant them or change their teaching approach? So we are kind of asking for a shift. Well, Sam, my knee-jerk reaction is, and I would not say this to a teacher's face, but why do you want doing something that's not working? You know what I mean? Is it really working? That's me being cheeky, y'all. We're not saying that to the teacher, because they're going to be like, "Get out," and you are never allowed back. But it's it is tough because we have to make it be so that it's almost the teacher's idea, because they have ownership of their classroom. They have a lot of stress put on them. They have you were just talking about just the curriculum alone. Do you have some tidbits on how to kind of slow walk a teacher maybe to seeing the benefit? Well, Vicki, you did when you asked the teacher to write the homework on the board, and all of a sudden the students were bringing their homework in. She saw the bonus of that. Yeah.
And I think part of it too is I've had the most success on changing minds when I've just asked questions. Like, what would it look like if you did this? What would it look like if you did that? So not me being like, why do you want to keep doing this thing when it's working? But just, what would it look like if you did this instead? What would the differences? I remember having a conversation with a teacher who did a lot of, this was a self-contained classroom, and they did a lot of hand over hand writing worksheets. And this is not my favorite way to teach anybody. So I just kind of kept asking, well, what would it look like if you didn't do that? And they were like, well, they wouldn't engage with the worksheet. And I was like, well, are they engaging with the worksheet now?
Yeah.
What does that look like? What would it look like if you didn't use worksheets? What would you do instead? What does engage them? What could we do instead? So just I wasn't telling them hand over hand handwriting is just not the. I hate that. I wasn't saying that. I was just constantly asking, like, well, what would it look like if you did this instead? What happens if you just don't use worksheets? What could you do instead? What is the benefit of what you're doing right now? Is this better than what I'm suggesting? Do you think you maybe want to try, like, maybe one day this week? Let's see what happens. I'll help. And like sit back kind of stuff.
But that's your in.
That ends up being the end. And I think sometimes when people look at the UDL charts on the website, they get really overwhelmed because there's a lot on there. But you don't have to change everything all at once. Like pick something. Like my goal for the next semester is going to be to work on, can I really think about multiple means of representation? Are there ways that I could be presenting information in more ways than I'm doing right now that could benefit my students? Let's start there.
Okay. Well, when we're doing, okay, sort of blah, 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 blah. All right. I want to get into, like, if we are wanting to shape our practice, we're wanting the teachers to shape our practice. So if we shaped, how would we need to shape our IEP goals, right? To advocate for accommodations that promote this access and flexibility, which we're going to turn to Emma to talk about goals, right? If that's okay. Because I'm thinking, our goals, accommodations the teacher need to follow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And just
Maybe.
before I talk about that, I was just going to add too, to kind of like, I love just the 2 words that Vicki said before that I think gets by on is saying, I'll help. I think that's
I'll help.
and I think for teacher buy-in, a lot of times, like, again, just like with our students, teachers already have so much on their plates. So to not add another task by saying, hey, I'll email you this visual that's been great for you to print off and laminate and Velcro on their desk. I'll just bring it because I already have it and I'm using it. That type of thing. It's easy. I'm already going to class probably to pick up the student. So one day I'll just bring that, whatever it is that's working for them and we'll leave it at their desk, or I'll bring my Velcro too and put it on there. Little things like that just help. And then especially if the student's already familiar with, if it is like a physical material, they'll probably start using it in class if it's available to them. So something like that is an easy way as well. But to go back to goal writing and accommodations now. Yeah, I think when you're writing your goals, we've already talked about this some. Think about what is the skill that you're actually trying to get at, and how exactly you're going to measure that. You want to be specific about the skill that you're looking at, but flexible about the methods, basically. So firm on and maybe not rigid, but firm would be a better word to think about it, of the actual skill. And then, be flexible. And I think when we're writing goals, I'm not ever afraid of putting parentheses in my goal. Let's say they're going to do it. This, or this. That's fine. And or is a great phrase, because sometimes you don't know. And also sometimes it may change. I've had a student before who hated any type of writing task. And then after years of hating anything where they had to do a written response, got more confidence in their writing and then wanted to write all their responses. Awesome. Great. We'll shift to letting you respond that way. So I think writing goals that say things like, we'll respond using verbal and or written expression. Even just adding something like that gives an idea rather than just they will respond, right? Or they'll identify by pointing to visuals out of this many rather than just they'll identify. Something like that, kind of being specific about what their options are, basically, when you're writing your goals.
I love this. So what I gleaned from what you just said, we need to be firm when we are explaining the skill. We need to be concrete and firm when we're saying this is the skill that we are wanting. This is our target. But we need to be flexible. So firm and flexible. That flexible with how we measure it. Because I think the three of you have all said that what's the most important is that they have the knowledge.
Right. And I
That-
think that kind of firm but flexible, I think we got that. And I think, Vicki, you provided some information about that. There's a UDL flow chart that is available that kind of goes into that a little bit more, where I kind of got that jumping off point.
Okay, I think I'll try to pull that up if I can. But I love this. So when we're thinking about writing our goals, firm and flexible. Okay, I think this, I'm not sure who came this words hard for Carolyn today. So let's go further into the goals, level of prompting. Do you write that flexibly or use specific number of prompts? The example that was asked is, will do X skill given no more than one prompt?
I think the things to think about with that are the expectations for all the students in the class at that age. Are all the preschoolers expected to follow directions with no more than one prompt? Probably not. So I probably won't put that in there. But if I'm trying to measure the amount of prompting and I'm trying to decrease the prompting that's needed, then I would put that in there because that's what I'm trying to measure, basically.
Thank you, Emma. Hopefully they answered that one. Okay. I'm looking at our time and I was going to look up the flow chart and I wasn't able to catch one fast enough, but I want to keep going because I want to make sure I did put in the link in the chat for Vicki, your article, so everyone grab that too. All right, so we talked about goals to be firm and flexible. I think this might be for everyone, this next question, if we want to talk about really how do we okay, I guess I'm just saying actionable steps, like when we're I think we're talking about sometimes when we're listening to podcasts and we're listening to a new way of thinking and it's shaping we're doing something. How can we get started? Because taking that big leap is sometimes just too much for somebody right now. And it just may be thinking about some smaller steps that we can take, because we also want to feel that we are doing things right. And so sometimes it's like jumping in and being, can we talk about maybe taking some small steps and some strategies for us?
So my first, when people ask me like where they would start, where they should start with UDL, I usually tell them to think about, is there a way that you can embed more student choice within what you're doing? Start there, because that can tend to build up more engagement, and the engagement kind of drives a lot of the rest of it. So I like to push people to think about how we can increase learner agency across all kinds of different ways. So if you're going to start in one spot, that's where I usually suggest people start.
Okay. Which is the first pillar, engagement.
Yes.
And I like that.
Well, to be fair, they're not actually in order. Like CAS doesn't have UDL order in any way. I think of it as first, but that's to be fair to the whole UDL people out there. That I think of engagement first, but that's not necessarily that's not canon exactly.
I will acquiesce to that, but I will also say a speech paths engagement is where do we go if we don't have them engaged? There's nowhere else for us to go. So I'm with you on your camp that it should be first.
Thank you.
But it doesn't have to be y'all, but I think we all agree it should be. Wink, wink. Any other Allie and Emma thinking about some small steps?
I would think, kind of practically speaking, right now, we're nearing probably when a lot of schools are going to be getting out soon for winter break, which means you likely have progress reports coming up to write, which is everybody's favorite thing.
Yeah, right.
That's kind of, I think it would be a good natural opportunity when you're already looking at all your goals for all your students to kind of evaluate those goals, self-evaluate, think about each kiddo. Are those goals measuring what I want? And thinking about, okay, how could I, you're kind of doing the self-reflection piece on yourself, not with the kids. And, kind of coming up with your own practical steps for while you're writing those progress reports and what you could do when you get back to school, because that's coming up.
I love that. Right. I mean, the efficacy of the goal itself, we should reflect on that, especially if we've written a goal at the beginning. This is an initial, like, let's say it's an initial, and you haven't worked with this kid, you don't really know this kid. What a perfect time to reflect and say, did this goal
Actually, I see now that they would do better with this type of thing or whatever. Yeah.
Right, because we will stand firm that we want to have correct. Need to be flexible when our target needs to change.
Right.
I like what Emma said about reflecting on the goals that we've written for our students. And then also even taking that, asking, what are we really asking them to do? And then even taking that out a bigger step and thinking within the school context. And maybe an action step would be go into a classroom with a kid one day and, see what they're doing in class and see if our goals are aligning to what they're doing in the classroom.
I agree, because I think that's the important one of the main differences between working in a school and working privately or in clinic or something along, something other than a school, is that the one caveat that we have to adhere to is that we are here for educational access. We need to, or taking those barriers for them to engage in their education. The communication piece is that representation. How right? How is it not only how is it being presented to them? What's the representation receiving it? And then not being being flexible on how I'm trying to weave this all in, ladies. I'm truly trying. You guys did amazing. So that how they are showing that they know the skill should be bolstered by their strength, not just because you want them to write it if they could verbalize it, or maybe they don't want to verbalize it for some other reason, and they write it, and they're giving you the knowledge, right? Okay. Did we talk enough about action and expression, or did I mix those two together when I was seeking representation? I just want to make sure.
I think you got there.
Okay. I just want to make sure that I'm not that we got those three though.
I tend to think of it as like input and output.
Okay.
Representation as the input. Make sure we have various ways of doing that. And then action expression is the output. Do they have a variety of ways to do that?
Okay, I did. See, okay, now I got it, because I think I melded them together. So the representation is the input, how we are representing the information to them. And then the actual action and expression is that flexibility with them being able to share and show.
Yes.
So
we have that firm, this is what we want them to show. The output, they can get there in a couple of different ways.
Absolutely. Okay. I cannot believe that we are coming to the end, and I just want to make sure that we got through everything, that our listeners, we understand why and what this is all about. Do you guys want to end on giving us that moment or another what makes you remind you of why this framework matters? Maybe success story.
I knew this question was coming and I still don't have a good answer.
Well, you already gave answer. You gave it when you said the homework. Like that one, That still stuck with me. That's really sticking with me because I think the point is it's not our wins can be so little in the eyes of other people, but this win was huge. That child now could just see it, not having with everything else going on. You just won the battle for that kiddo. Without really, and was it really hard to do? No, you just saw what that student needed. But why this is universal is because that benefited everybody else in the class. So kudos.
Yeah. So those kids who didn't have any auditory processing issues, but, were busy thinking about what they have to do for the next class in that last minute and missed what the teacher was saying, or the kid with the hearing loss, or the other
Right.
kids who are in there whose English is maybe not their first language and didn't catch all that stuff at the end because everybody else is noisily putting their stuff in their backpacks and the bell is
Right.
so yes.
Oh, thanks, Jill, for jumping in. We all have the patience for the small win. Thanks, Jill. I love that. I love that. All right. Well, I cannot believe that I have to wrap this up. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us. I love this. I absolutely love it. And I loved having a whole panel today. This was new for me. So sorry, I was staring at you. You didn't know I was staring at you because normally when I'm just test, I'm like looking at them and asking them a question, and so that's kind of funny on me. But I mean, thank you for your time and sharing, your knowledge. Thank you for sharing your all your wins, big or small. Because that's again, yeah. Thank you, and everyone's jumping in. Thank you. All right, y'all. As we end, I just want to remind everybody that if you did enjoy this episode, please give us a like, leave a review, give a heads up to other school-based speech pathologists to come listen to School of Speech. Don't forget that it is offered for 0.1 ASHA CEUs. So after listening, I want to make sure that you head over to your speech therapy account and fill that out. But thank you, Vicki. Thank you, Allie. Thank you, Emma. I cannot thank you enough. I've loved it. Everybody, thanks for coming. Those that are listening later, thanks for tuning in. I hope that everybody found this episode as helpful and inspiring as I did. And I really can't wait to see everybody on our next episode. All right, guys. Hey, thanks so much, guys.